Here's my summary of the Pattern Seekers, How Autism Drives Human Invention. Why am I doing this? Well, I love doing summaries. They help me to understand what I'm reading, and I've been told they sometimes help other people too. And in this particular case, I'm hoping the book and the summary will help me understand my own possible neurodivergence. And maybe it'll help you too. The author of this book is Simon Baron-Cohen, a well-known autism researcher who's spread his message in various books, papers, and videos. He's taken some controversial positions over the years, including linking autism to an underdeveloped theory of mind, so basically having trouble understanding other people's thoughts and feelings, and hence a lack of empathy. He's also proposed the view that autistic people tend to have an extreme male brain. Although I find his views intriguing, I do find his writing a little bit confusing, hence this summary. He comes up with lots of big themes, and then seems to water them down with various caveats. And his emphasis on a problem with theory of mind may have delayed my own self-diagnosis for decades, as it didn't really seem to entirely match my own experience. So what's my plan here? I'll start off with a brief chapter-by-chapter summary. I'll take 3 of his apparent conclusions and try to reconstruct his logic. And I'll have a few closing remarks, but this isn't really a critique of his position. Maybe that'll be in a future video. Alright, here we go. Chapter 1, Simon Baron-Cohen introduces the idea of human beings pattern seeking and a particular subset of humans who are really strong with their systemizing mechanism. And this type of person tends to become an inventor, hence the title on the front cover. Maybe a STEM student or worker, namely in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, or gets into the legal profession, all areas where an eye on perfection is key. He also says there's a genetic basis to this systemizing. In Chapter 2, he gets into the if-and-then approach, so unique to humans, basically where you set up and tweak your experiments to understand why and how something is happening. He talks about the special human nature not just of systemizing, but also empathizing. And then he divides empathizing into recognizing someone else's thoughts or emotions versus doing something about it, so cognitive versus affective empathy. He makes this distinction perhaps because his mind-blindness position has tended to imply autistic people have no empathy. He's saying here that an autistic person can do something about other people's thoughts or feelings, but has trouble knowing about them to begin with. In Chapter 3, he talks about testing for strengths of systemizing, strength of empathizing, and categorizing a person accordingly. In Chapter 4, he continues the theme of autistic people as systemizers and therefore as inventors. For instance, he says Bill Gates is a great inventor but has lousy social skills. However, his philanthropy shows he still cares. In Chapter 5, Simon Baron-Cohen maps out his position that modern humans are unique, even compared to other human species that eventually went extinct. He says we developed our systemizing mechanism 70,000 to 100,000 years ago through natural selection as many different genes mutated. This systemizing mechanism helped us develop agriculture and invent the wheel, writing, mathematics, religion, and create art such as jewelry. In Chapter 6, he further develops his position that animals lack modern humans' curiosity, including that ability to set up and modify conditions, make repeated observations, and make further changes that help us connect and clarify cause and effect. In Chapter 7, Simon Baron-Cohen attempts to dismiss, downplay, or incorporate beliefs that invention was spurred by the start of language, idea merging, symbolic thinking, and so on. In Chapter 8, he explores higher rates of systemizing in various places, such as Silicon Valley, and concludes that parents can pass on their autistic genes to their children. In Chapter 9, the final chapter of the book, he praises neurodiversity and the value that systemizers can bring to society, but that can only flourish through the right kinds of education, skills training, and job environments. So after all that, I picked out 3 themes. Autism and systemizing are related. Systemizing is a valuable skill. And systemizers can and should be supported. So in order to relate autism and systemizing, it would help to show that an unusually high number of autistic people are systemizers, and an unusually high number of systemizers are autistic. So on that first claim, Simon Baron-Cohen points to his own study that showed in the UK, maybe 62% of autistic males were systemizers, as opposed to 44% typically, while 50% of females were systemizers, as opposed to 27% typically. In another study, autistic teenagers performed better on a test designed to find future engineers, which in turn implies they're better systemizers. Autistic people are reported to be 40% faster at detecting patterns. More autistic people than those with other disabilities choose STEM at university. And an older study showed autistic children were better at producing patterns. In the opposite direction, Simon Baron-Cohen found that STEM students, namely better systemizers, scored higher on an autistic test than humanities students. Also, math students were more likely to have an autistic diagnosis than humanities students. And worldwide, STEM students score both higher on an autism test and higher on a systemizing test. So it looks like autism and systemizing are related. Next is the claim that systemizing is a valuable skill. The reasons here are a bit more general. Basically, if systemizing is unique for humans, then systemizers help to make our modern world better. And if we benefit from tools and other discoveries that systemizing produces, then systemizing itself benefits us. Next, systemizers can and should be supported. So if we've established systemizing is useful, then so are systemizers. And if, because of genetics, systemizers are born, not made, then they need to be nurtured, otherwise we'll have less systemizing in our society. That's where respecting neurodiversity gets a boost. As for how they should be supported, employers can improve their process of finding job candidates. If autistic people are less able to maintain eye contact and engage in small talk, in fact read the intention and meaning of the interviewer at all, then maybe try other ways of evaluating a candidate's skills. Also keep in mind social anxiety in the workplace and ways to reduce it. The same with autistic children. Teach them skills to deal with their anxiety better. And also at school, autistic children should be allowed to specialize, as they tend to like details and get confused or annoyed at generalizations that aren't backed up by facts. With time, they'll find connections that expand their specialist knowledge to more general contexts. That's opposite to mainstream education that emphasizes general top-down teaching. So, Simon Baron-Cohen is making the case here that systemizers can and should be supported. And in broad strokes, his 3 big points I've focused on here have a lot going for them. Indeed, I think Simon Baron-Cohen is great at pointing to big themes, even if he seems to hedge or qualify a lot of those big statements. I do find his reasoning hard to follow sometimes, but I think it's good to know his positions at least. And with that, I conclude my humble summary. Thanks for watching. I hope it's been helpful.